Hi, welcome to Romantasy Readers Podcast. My name is Nicole and I'm here with the amazing, sensational Alley. We are so happy to have you guys here today. How are you going, Alley?
I'm doing super well. I'm in a new place. If long time YouTube watchers haven't noticed, I'm on vacation in San Antonio, Texas. But the podcast must go on even when I'm on vacation. So I'm recording in a back room of the house, but I brought my microphone and my webcam so we could record the podcast. But I'm doing well. How are you
That's
doing,
right.
Nicole?
Well, I'm good. But yeah, the Romantasy podcast goes everywhere. We are not going to leave you guys behind. Wherever we are traveling, it is coming with us. But you are the jet setter at the moment, Alley, because you've just been on a big business trip
I
to
have.
the other side of the world.
Yeah, I got to go to India for my job, which was absolutely amazing. I was there for like 10 days. Um, did a full week of work while I was there, got to meet my colleagues who work in India, did some like presentations and meetings, and then stayed through the weekend. And my husband actually came with me. So we went and we took some tours. We just saw a bunch of amazing palaces and temples. We were very sweaty. It was very hot while we were there, but yeah, it was an awesome trip.
I love it. I follow Ali's husband, and that was the main way that I was able to watch her trip because Ali was working. Can we just point out for a second that Ali is like the ultimate power woman because her husband just went on a holiday. She was there working 9 to 5, doing all the work, and he was just holidaying, traveling around the towns, taking the photos, living the tourist life, getting his little tuk tuk, and Ali was working. But
Yeah.
he's
It
a
was
lucky husband.
he would like wake up with me and have breakfast. So we would like wake up, we'd have breakfast together. He'd like send me off to the office, and then he would just like go bop around the city and like explore things and take pictures, and I had to work all day. Yeah, and then he would like meet up for dinner and go
I
from
do
there.
I do love though, and we'll share this, that you found a bookstore while you were
Yeah.
away.
Yes,
Tell us about
I
that.
went. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I went to the oldest bookstore in Bangalore. It's called Higginbotham's, and I like had looked it up ahead of time because that's kind of my new thing that I like to do when I travel is I go and I like want to look find a local bookstore. And it just so happened that this bookstore was like a 7-minute walk from my hotel. So my husband and I go, we're like walking up, and I can see from like a block away this massive House of Flame and Shadow Sarah
Yes.
J. Maas poster. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so I took pictures and posted it, but they had like big poster, huge display inside there of the book. They had paperbacks, which we don't have yet in the States. I did not buy one because I already have like 3 copies. So I was like, I don't need a paperback. But yeah, it was absolutely cool. And then the other thing that they had is they had the special editions of Fourth Wing and Iron Flame, not only with the
Oh.
sprayed edges, but with the like white dragons on Fourth Wing and the white clouds on Iron Flame. And I did
Yes.
buy those
Yeah.
copies. I
I'll
did
I'll
collect
I
the
mean,
thing.
it's like a memento. Like, why would you go buy, like, a little India magnet when you could
Yeah.
buy a Fourth Wing special edition with the black edges? Like,
Yeah.
obviously.
Absolutely. And the like decorated like that specific version of Fourth Wing I ordered with the like little white dragons on it, and I never received it.
Yes.
No, not Fourth Wing. Iron Flame. That's where the
Yeah,
issues were.
yeah.
Was Iron Flame. So I ordered that version of Iron Flame and just like never got it in the mail. So it was fate. I was so excited. I'm gonna like display them on my shelf. So it's like a cool way to remember the trip, as I got
I
this cool like
know.
special edition book. Yeah.
So good. Love it. Love it. Oh, that's awesome. All right. So we're going to get into a how we often begin our podcast, which is with what we have been reading this week. So, Ali, what
Yeah.
book are you reading at the moment? Or books, I should say. You normally have multiples going at once.
I do. I am only reading one at the moment. but it's the sequel to Divine Rivals. So I finally started Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross, the
Yeah.
Divine Rivals sequel. It's been on my list for a while. I'll be honest, I
Same.
didn't love the first book. It was one of those like book talk sensations that I was like, I don't
Yeah,
totally
I
get the
know. They were
hype.
recommending it after Fourth Wing, and it's like Downton
Yeah,
Abbey. It's like a completely different style of book. I still enjoyed it, but it was a gentle
right,
read. To me, it was a very
right.
gentle romantic read compared to
Very gentle YA, so not like, it's definitely like closed door. So I was like, it took me a while to get to the sequel, but I will say now that I know what the book is and the series is, and I have like a better sense of like what it is. I'm actually really enjoying this second book
Ah.
a
Do
lot
you
more than I liked the first
do you
one.
think okay, so you think the second one's better?
I don't even know if it's better. I just think that I am now in the headspace to like appreciate it because it really was getting pitched as like what you read after Fourth Wing, and
Exactly.
it just is like
Not
so
the
not
right
that.
thing to
It's just
recommend.
not that. Yeah. Um so
Now
I'd have to think about if I think it's, I'm only about a 40% of the way through. So I don't know how it will end and how I'll feel, but right now I'm liking it a lot.
now hang on, I have to ask because you said to me before you went on your trip that you were going to prioritize this book series. Did you end up reading Kingdom of the Wicked while you're on
I
your trip?
did not. I did. Okay, so here's the deal. I downloaded all 3 of them for my plane ride, but I've told myself first I had to get through arcs. I had 3 arcs to read.
Oh, no.
I got through all of them. Um, and then I don't know, I just was, like, feeling like I needed something different, like, I don't know. So I just picked up Divine Right or Ruthless Vows. I'm such a mood reader sometimes. I wish I could say that that's going to be the next book that I read, but it's not going to be because I have another thing that I'm going to read for this podcast. And
Mhm.
then I think I really want to read the 4th book in this like King Arthur. Well, I don't know when
Yeah,
I'm going to
so
get to it.
about 6 to 12 months from now, you'll finally be ready to read it.
6 to 12 months from now, right? Just in time for the
The
3rd
next
entry book to
release.
come out and delay me.
Yeah. Yeah, but no, the next one, Throne of Secrets, I think she's just been releasing the cover for it, the last couple of days, Throne of Secrets by, Kerry Maniscalco, so it'll be getting on the radar soon, so maybe as part of the podcast, we'll finally, like, as that's getting close to release, we might finally
Yeah,
prioritize for you to read that
to
trilogy
read that
so you
series. Yeah.
can get into
Yeah.
the
Well,
zone.
and we did say, like, at the beginning of the year that we were gonna do the Spark of the Everflame. We were like, "We're gonna do it book by book. It's gonna be so exciting." And we still have those plans. We just keep getting, like,
Just keeps getting pushed down the priority
things.
list as,
Yeah, exactly.
Sarah J. Maas just drops us the occasional Easter egg picture that we just lose our minds over, or,
Yeah.
Rebecca Yarros just drops, like a title and, all my plans just go out the window.
Everything just goes out the window. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. And, um, I feel like at this point we have, like, a year and a half of content that we, like, are planning to do. The list just keeps getting
Yeah,
bigger and
yeah,
bigger. So,
yeah. Well, I am finally catching up on my TBR. Like, I've had books on there that really shouldn't be on a TBR, but I've had other things that have been a
I mean,
priority, and they have been. I finally just finished a Flesh in the Fire. Flesh?
oh my
I
gosh.
don't know which way is it. Fire in the Flesh, Flesh in the Fire. I finally finished it. Oh my god, that's like so good. I mean, it's
It
top
is
tier.
so good,
Jennifer
isn't it?
Armentrout, top tier, like right up there, 5 stars. No
Yeah,
doubt about it. Like, just Nick Toss is just a shadow daddy. Oh
he
my
is
god.
so, like, I think I like him more than I like Castile
Yeah.
from the other series
Yeah.
by her as an
Mhm.
MMC. He is just amazing. So if readers, listeners, if you don't know what we're talking about, there are Jennifer Armentrout has 2 series. The first one is From Blood and Ash, and then there's a prequel series to that series that is just as good, and I would argue maybe even
Mm.
better, called The Flesh and
Yeah.
the Fire. And they both have their own like MMCs, and they're unique. and just so good. Like, I'm obsessed with this series. That is another one that we're gonna have to do on the podcast. We're gonna have to
Yeah.
do a
Yeah.
Jennifer Armentrout like whole, because I have so many theories after reading that book about what the next book's gonna be
Mhm.
that I want to talk to you about, but that
Well,
is
there was
not.
some huge I mean, I always like to say Jennifer just, like, she knows what to give you, and she just gives you that
Yeah.
and then some. Like, everyone becomes a god, a
Yeah.
primal
Yeah.
of life. Like, they're just like, how high can you make that tier? Like, that is what they're gonna be and then some. And, yeah, but she just delivers it, and it's just so, so insanely satisfying.
It's
Always,
so good.
always. She's
Yeah.
just yeah, it's
So was it a 5-star read for you or
oh
like 4
god,
star?
yeah.
What do you think?
No, no, no,
Yeah.
5. Yeah, without a
Yeah.
doubt,
Absolutely.
5. Like, I already really
Absolutely.
knew going into it. I just 'cause that whole series, I love this whole series and from Shadow and Ash. I can't even remember these names now.
And
They're all
Blood and
so
Ash. I
similar.
know,
I'm
it's
just like,
hard. They're hard.
"Blah." But you know what I'm talking about. All these books, I love them. She just as I say, she just knows the recipe and she does it so well. And as we say, when it comes to spice, she's really top tier when it comes to spice.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
she really it's like every time they're in a bedroom, you know that they're getting down
Something's
to
going
something.
down.
She
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah. And
mind
it's
you,
gonna
I
be like
did feel like there was a bit of a stretch in this one. We had to wait a while to get there. And
mhm,
yeah, that was a little bit painful. She definitely did some new things with this book that she hasn't like she
hasn't
often
done.
hasn't done the slow burn that much, but this one
Mhm.
felt like a bit
Mhm.
of a slow burn.
Yeah. This one has what I am calling now like my favorite micro trope after our conversation with Demi Winters. There's a hot spring.
Yes.
Love that hot spring scene. Love the hot spring scene. I love a hot spring. It's just like I want that in every single one of my romantasy books. I do. I want a hot spring in every
Mhm,
book.
mhm. It can you can't do wrong with that, like,
No,
trope.
I'll never get
It
tired of
always
it.
works. It
Yeah,
always
it will
works.
always work for
It's
me.
hot, steamy, muscles, guys hot with muscles and,
Yeah.
it just
Yeah.
everything works. It just works.
Well,
Speaking
speaking of, oh my god, we're gonna do the same transition. Our brain is the same person. You go it. You do it. You do it.
No, sorry. Yes, darling. Hello. Are you taking my phone? All right, mummy's just in a recording, okay, baby? You gonna be okay for a little bit? Okay, close the door. Okay. Um, where were we up to? I'm doing well with the kids on their school holidays today.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think we jumped into speaking of. You can do it.
Okay. Speaking of books with hot spring scenes, today we're gonna be talking about another book with a hot spring scene,
Yes.
which is A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle Jensen. I'm so excited to talk about this book.
Me too.
Um, yeah, it is. What are your general thoughts? Like, tell me, gush to me, because
Ah,
just so you guys know, like, we have not actually had a chance to talk about this yet because I read this on my way back from India, and Nicole had read it like a week before me, and we literally haven't talked about it. So I'm so excited to get
yeah. Okay. All right.
for
So
the
just
first
quickly for
time. Tell me
everyone,
everything.
I'm going to assume that everyone here knows Danielle Jensen, has read her books, hopefully has read Bridge Kingdom, and has read this. We're going to do some spoilers. So quickly, if you're not
Yeah,
into spoilers, jump away now because
until
we're
you
going to
get
get
away.
right into it.
Yeah,
But then for everyone that has read it, this is our take. This was awesome. This is the first book this year that I've actually gone. I wish this had 200 more pages. Like,
yeah,
I feel
absolutely.
like everything, Sarah J. Maas, all of it, I was like, this could have been edited better. I feel like there were 200 unnecessary pages. This was the first book that I'm there and I'm in the last 50 pages and I'm there going, what? That's not enough. Like, I
Is
need more.
the
Like,
ending?
why are we nearly at the end of this book? Like, I can't be. There's still so much I need to know. Like, you can't finish this
Mhm.
yet. So it's just, and in that way, I just think it was perfection. It was just, it knew what it was. It wasn't an overly complicated book. I wouldn't say that it was a really deep, complex read. It's a perfect romantasy Vikings genre book. It's got the hot MMC. It's got the strong female coming into her strength and figuring out her powers. Some great twists and turns along the way. It just knew what it was and it delivered it to perfection. That's my thoughts.
Yeah,
How about
yeah.
you?
That's exactly how I feel about it. Like, I love a book that's like just a tight, like a tight plot. It doesn't meander. It knows what it's doing and it does it well, right? Like page for page, chapter for chapter, it delivered on what it was and what it was trying to be. It was so good. I could not stop reading it. Like I read this on my flight home from India, which is like 24 hours of travel. It's like 2 10-hour flights with, like layovers in between. I read it nonstop. That is all I did on my way back. I did not sleep because all I could do was read this book.
Oh,
So,
amazing.
and I like love a book that captures you like that you just like can't. I feel like that's like a high for me. Like I'm always chasing that high. Like I'm chasing that feeling of like, oh, I
Oh,
can't put it down.
I
And
know. And
I
also when
haven't
it's
had
such
that in a
a
while.
yeah, and when it's such a surprise as well, because I mean, I think you kinda got that with Fourth Wing, that surprise. I thought it'd be good, but I didn't realize it would be that good,
That good.
and
Yeah.
you just, like you actually don't wanna leave the world. You are just in sheer joy,
Yeah.
and it's just giving you everything you could possibly want, and as you say, you just wanna be in that world. You don't wanna be in the real world, you wanna be in that world, and you don't wanna leave,
Mhm.
and hence you're
Yeah.
looking at the 50 pages left, and you're like, "I'm not ready to finish this story yet."
I'm not
Like, I'm not
ready.
ready to be done with it. Give me
Yeah.
more pages, Danielle, I need more.
Yeah. And like I truly don't think that I've had that in a book like this year. Like
Yeah,
CC3 was not that for me. Like it wasn't that book that I was just like could not put down. It was amazing for lots of other reasons, but I haven't had that book that like pulls me into that like my husband, we call it I'm like in a fugue state, so I'm like
mhm.
fuging. It's like a very silly term that we've made up between the two of us, but that's what it was. It was like, in this like manic state of like I won't stop reading. Um
Yeah, if your family comes in, you're like, go away,
Go
leave me
away.
alone."
Go back to me.
I think,
The
like
flight attendant comes by and is like, "Do you need some water?" I'm like, "No, I'm just reading. Just leave me alone."
and someone's just trying to, like, make idle chat with you, and you just, like, death stare them, like, "Can you not see that I am reading? Can you not see
I
that I'm in
know.
the middle of this?" But I
My
think, like
husband kept asking me if I wanted to watch a movie with him on the flight, like, where we, like, started at the same time, which we do love to do, and I was like, "No, I have literally 0 interest in that."
0 priority, 0
Yeah,
interest. I
yeah,
think, like, when you spoke about Crescent City, like, for me, the first 25 chapters of Crescent City felt like that. Like, as a matter of fact, I was
yeah,
just, like, crazy, like, still haven't been able to let this go to this day. But then the rest of the book for me was a real struggle. Like, the
yeah,
rest of it just fizzled. If the whole book had stayed in that level, it might have been a whole different story, and that might have been my favorite book of the year, but the second half just kinda dropped it
yeah,
right off for me,
yeah.
and it wasn't that enjoyable read. And look, there've been some great books. There's definitely been some books that I've enjoyed, that I've read, but this one was, as I said, just that sheer enjoyment and addiction, which,
Mhm,
like, I
mhm.
love Danielle as a author. We're really hoping that we might be able to bring her along to our podcast at some point in the not too distant future. We've got our people on it, but
Yeah.
we,
The feelings are being felt.
that's right, that's right. But yeah, I've loved her for a long time. I felt like I got onto her early, and I love everything that she does. So
Yeah.
it's super exciting.
The Bridge Kingdom series was another duology, the first 2 at least, that I just, like, could not put down. They were so, so addictive.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, for
and I
me,
do feel like this book, A Fate Aked in Blood, is that same level of addiction, but it in some ways it's more mature. It's like it feels like a little bit more mature of writing, a more complex world. Although I mean, obviously the Bridge Kingdom world is super complex, but just I don't know,
yeah.
it felt even better than
Exactly.
that
It's like
series.
she is maturing as an author, and she's
Yeah,
just getting better at her craft as she's
yeah.
going along. I think, like, for me, Bridge Kingdom healed my soul post my original Sarah J. Maas. Like, because I
Mm,
got into Sarah J. Maas, read all those books, and then I could not find a single book that was even in the realm of Sarah J.
yeah,
Maas. Like, I could not
yeah.
find, I hadn't stumbled upon Jennifer Armentrout yet, and I wasn't on Bookstagram or BookTok or any of that. So I wasn't getting these recommendations. So I'm Googling, other things, and I tried a few books, and they were pretty ordinary. And then I happened to see Bridge Kingdom was like the number one romance on like a DMX booksellers or something. And then that was kind of how, and then I realized it was fantasy. And I was like, Amazing. This is so up my alley. So I got that. And that was the
Great.
first book I read that felt like it was in at that level of Sarah J.
Yeah.
Maas. That just felt like it was similar, and I just loved it.
It
Mm.
was. They're really good books.
Yes, yes. All right. So to get you guys into the Fate Inked in Blood zone, I'm going to provide a summary today. Now, I'm trying a little something different today. We're going to see how it goes. Normally, Allie is our summary guru, but today I'm going to try. And rather than just doing my normal where I try and explain it from my mind and I end up in 10 places, I've written it out and I'm going to try and give it to you guys as fast as possible. So we're going to see how we go. And in life, I have a special hat here to celebrate my
Oh
little
my
Viking
god.
era. My husband went to Denmark for work, like, I don't know, like 5-6 years ago. And this has been sitting in the back of our cupboard. But in celebration of the Vikings, there we go.
Oh my gosh, you love a costume.
I do.
I
I love
wish I had something, but instead I'm just in, I for once I'm not in sweaters because I'm in Texas and it's like hot, but
Oh, well, I mean, you are on holidays. You're allowed to not have a
not have a
Viking
Viking
hat
hat. Okay, fair.
that jingles when you flick it.
Like pack that in the car just through the
Oh my gosh.
podcast.
Good luck to me trying to read when I don't laugh at myself. Okay. All right, guys. So, a fate inked in blood. So, A Fate Inked in Blood revolves around our beautiful FMC called Freya, who is married to Vragi, who is an awful husband who has been blessed by the god Njord, which means has the magical powers to pull fish from the water, which really isn't really a very good magical power, if you ask me. But he is mean and awful and starves the village so he can make more money. And Freya hates him but stays married to him because he supports and provides for her selfish, uncaring family. Freya meets Bjorn on the beach and nearly hits him with a fish. They fight and they have sassy banter, but she hates him, obviously, even though he is the most beautiful man she has ever seen. Her life turns upside down when she meets the Jarl Snorri, who is the current ruthless leader, and realizes that Bjorn is his son. In a test of strength to protect her brother, they force Freya to fight Bjorn to the death. Bjorn has been touched by the god Tyr and has a flaming axe that he fights with. The axe has the flame of the gods. He is also tall, dark, muscly, and gorgeous. Freya and Bjorn are fighting to the death, and just when he is about to make the final blow, she calls upon Hlyn, and it is revealed that she actually is the Shield Maiden, and she has, and as part of the prophecy, that the man by her side will unite the kingdoms of the realm and be king. Freya's husband is a narcissist piece of work, and in a rage, Freya grabs Bjorn's flaming axe and throws it at his head, killing him but also burning her hand quite badly. Snorri believes that he will be the leader to unite the realm and forces Freya to marry him. He is twice her age and already has a wife, so this is a little bit complicated. Freya goes through this with this to protect her family. Luckily, Snorri's first wife gets extremely jealous and forbids any intimacy between Snorri and Freya. Thank goodness. They also seal the secret with a blood pact, outlining that the secret can only be shared with the blood of Snorri. But guess who else is part of that bloodline? He then enlists Bjorn to help Freya learn to fight and use her God-given gifts. Other Jarls want to kill Freya because of the prophecy, and they start to attack the village. Freya and Bjorn work together, and Freya comes up with a nifty plan to burn the Jarls' boats and send them away. Snorri then forces them all to leave to get vengeance on the Jarl Newt and that attacked them. On the way, they encounter a spectre that tells Freya that she must give a sacrifice to the gods and defeat the Draug, which is like some like evil kind of like dead kind of soldiers in a mountain. I know that's what I
The
picked up.
zombies. Yeah.
Yeah. Bjorn and Freya enter the mountain alone and fight the Draug, a dead army that can only be defeated by magic. They work together and defeat the Draug. Freya realizes she can hold Bjorn's flaming axe when she calls Hlyn to protect her. Then they have to enter the temple of the gods, and Freya has to give a sacrifice to the gods. Now, this sacrifice is a big ass cow. Like literally, it's like apocalypse now. It's kind of freaky, but this is Vikings land. It has to, that has to happen. At the temple, they meet King Harold, who is the king of Norderland, which is backstory. He kept Bjorn prisoner when he was a child, but he was also like super caring of him and treated him like his own son. It is said that he killed Bjorn's mother, and Snorri considers him their greatest enemy. Freya has to offer a sacrifice to the gods, and when she completes the ritual under the influence of mushroom tea, all the gods appear. They say a line to Freya: Freya, born of the fire, child of two bloods, we see you. As Freya tries to understand this, she is also trying to work out her feelings and attraction to Bjorn. They are struggling to fight their urge to be together, and slowly they are losing this battle. There are a few more battle scenes and people trying to kill Freya, but in a plan to protect her, Bjorn kisses her passionately to shield her true identity, which is very smart thinking of Bjorn. Freya thinks that Snorri's wife Ylva is actually a spy and is working to kill her and Bjorn, so that her son can become the king. But she is needing some proof. Jarl Newt, who's the bad guy, attacks Snorri's village and kills people and destroys home. Snorri wants to seek vengeance to attack Newt's village. Freya wants vengeance too, but Bjorn doesn't like this and says that Snorri is a bit cray-cray and ignoring important details, such as the fact that Newt's walls are impenetrable and no one has ever successfully taken on the fortress. So in short, he believes that Snorri is sending them all to die. Freya decides that they should attack anyway and that the gods are actually on their side. Snorri insists on going over the mountains instead of safely going around them and staying on the travels. Freya loses her balance as they go up the mountain and falls into freezing water. She then proceeds to get hypothermia and she almost dies. Snorri doesn't care at all and pretty much leaves her to her own devices, and it's only because of Bjorn and Freya's friends that they manage to warm her up and keep her alive. They attack Newt's fortress, and with Freya using her badass protective shield powers from Hlyn, they break the fortress. Freya's friend is killed and she turns into a badass warrior woman, and then she goes on a full-on killing spree. They defeat Newt and take over the fortress, but everyone becomes a little bit scared of Freya after seeing her killing spree, and she gets to see herself through someone else's eyes. Now, Freya's eyes go full-on crimson and they kind of smoke. She's actually pretty scary, but she's also like super badass warrior woman, shadow woman, if you ask me. Freya wants to leave after this and escape with Bjorn, but Snorri uses Freya's brother to force her to fight for him. She finally tells Bjorn the truth, that her marriage to Snorri is actually a farce and it was never consummated. He wants to leave with her, but she doesn't want to endanger her family, even though they're a pack of assholes. Let's be honest, her family's just like not good. Freya and Bjorn sneak off to her mother's house to find out the truth about her conception. They find out that they were tricked by the god who shared their bed in order to make her brother well, because her brother was actually a really sick baby. But we find out that this was all a lie. The next day, Hlyn shows up with her said brother, who's actually a healthy baby now, saying that they were tricked and offers to also provide a drop of her own blood to the pregnancy. She is told that altruism will steer Freya on the right path. When they return, they're quickly surrounded by King Harold's army. They fight, and then Freya and Bjorn run away and jump over a waterfall. They jump, and everyone thinks that they died. As they are falling, Freya calls to Hlyn, and Hlyn protects them and keeps them alive. They then go to a cave with some hot pools. Things get a little steamy between the two, and they agree to be together and live the simple life. Just after she gives her heart and her body to Bjorn, King Harold of Norderland is waiting outside the cave. Turns out Bjorn was working with Harold this whole time. He was the spy, and he has been planning to capture Freya and take her to Norderland. He says that they'd actually been meant to kill her, but that changed once he got to know her and realized that she was a pretty gorgeous woman that he actually wanted to keep. So Freya is furious and tells him to go to hell and curse you all to Helheim. Next thing, the ground opens up and takes everyone underground except for those that have power. What we find out that Freya is the daughter of Hel. She is drugged, put to sleep, and wakes up tied in rope on her way to Norderland with Bjorn. We find out Bjorn's mum is not dead and is actually living in Norderland. Bjorn says it's Snorri that's actually the bad and evil person, and there is so much drama. And that is the end of the book. She is on her way to Norderland. She is on a boat, and she hates Bjorn at this point in time. Okay, there we go. I'm done.
I love the costumes and the accessories. I love the summary. I read it so fast that there were definitely things that you talked about that I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. So that was helpful.
You were just like on a plane, probably like severely jet lagged,
Yeah,
reading at
dehydrated.
altitude. It probably
Yeah,
makes
and
sense
just
that a
like
few things went over your head.
inhaling it, not totally processing all of the things. It's so funny. We started the top of this episode being like, it's a really straightforward and simple book. And then you're going through the summary, and I was like, Oh god, there's a lot of complexity here.
I know, I say that, but I guess it's just when you compare it to, like, Sarah J. Maas and the level of,
Yeah,
like, little Easter eggs
yeah.
that she lays, like, this doesn't have quite that level, but it's still got a lot of story. It's still got a
It still
lot of
has a
story, a
lot
lot
of
of
story.
fantasy, and it was so thoroughly Viking. Like, it was
Yeah,
a real
yeah, and so much lore, like, just there's so many different gods and goddesses, and you're learning about the lore at the same time that you're learning about our characters and their backstory. So it flows very naturally because of that. So you almost forget, like, you just forget how much you're learning because it is so much like you just learn a little bit as you go, just like the characters.
yeah.
So
Do you know how
yeah,
hard that was to just do because I was trying to say those names? Like, I'm just like, Bjorn, Snorri, Newt. I'm like, I
sure.
don't even know if that's the right pronunciation, but anyway, we're going with it. We're going with it, people.
We're just gonna pick something and move on. I hope we get to interview Danielle Jensen because then we can ask her how to say all these things, how she says them in her
Exactly,
head.
exactly. All right. All right, let's jump into a couple of like overview kind of questions so we can talk about each individual little part of
Yeah,
the story so that
sounds
we
great.
don't forget anything. We wouldn't want to like forget a major element of this story when we're
No,
talking
we
about it.
can't.
So I wanted to talk about first about when Freya first meets Bjorn. What did you think of this?
It was so good. First of all, I was, like, really surprised when I found out that, like, our main character was married already to this, like,
Yeah.
asshole guy. I was like, "Okay, that's a little different. That's a little different.
Okay. It's a
How's
bit-
this gonna play out? How's she gonna get out of this marriage?" Like, just a little, and then, of course, Bjorn shows up, and you're like, "Okay, well, that's our guy. That's our MMC, so how are they gonna end up together?"
I
Um,
Well, we're so
but I
used to like, let's be honest, most of our books, like, they're virgin normally, like, 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds,
Yeah,
to have
yeah.
someone that's been married for a couple of years, like, this is very, very different space, but it's also quite
Mhm.
Viking. Like, I think they were a little bit more you could just divorce and remarry. They weren't so much like, "Oh, there's a woman can only be married once, otherwise she's tainted," like the
Yeah,
old English ways.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and, it's it Bjorn right away is, like, super flirty and, like, saying things like, "Oh, I'm really good in bed," basically, which is so you're just like the whole book, you're just like, "Alright, Bjorn, are you gonna prove it?" Like,
When are we
"What's
going to
going
see these
on?"
said skills that you're talking about? I
Yeah.
The banter between these
Her
2
banter is so
is
good. Yeah.
perfection. I love from the minute that she nearly hits him with a fish, and then the banter begins, and that's just banter is I think banter is my favorite thing in a romantasy book. If there
Yeah.
is good banter, I'm there. Like, the rest of it can be second rate, but if that banter is on point, I love it.
Everything else works. I totally agree with that. I definitely agree with that. And I l is not like, I mean, I love a good enemies to lovers, but it was really nice to see, like, a friends to lovers done in a really good way. Like, because, they're never enemies. And I do think I
No.
would classify it as, like, friends to lovers because I do think they become friends, but that tension for them is there from the get-go, that romantic tension.
Yeah.
So it's like as they're developing their friendship, you're just like, "No, don't be friends."
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to think what I would actually call it because they're sort of forced together. I guess it's like forced
It is
proximity. Like
forced
it's
proximity.
kind of
Yeah, it's
the
forced
because of
proximity
the
for sure.
situation. Not that he's pretty into her from the get go. Like, let's be honest. Like straight away,
Yeah,
Bjorn's kind of like, I really like this girl. Like she
yeah.
married whatever. He doesn't really care. And then he's having to go along with the fact that Snorri's like, I'm gonna make you my second
I
wife, and it's
know.
just
Yeah,
like you realize you have a son and like you could actually just marry her off to your son and then she'd be part of your family and that would probably also be fine. Like
yeah.
but, but that wouldn't be fun, would it? That would not be fun.
No,
So
no, no.
um yeah, is your as you said, it's not really a typical enemies to lovers. They weren't enemies. They were definitely a bit feisty with each other, but they just sort of start as kind of almost co-workers, you could say, and it slowly builds.
Yeah, yeah, they do. Well, and it is interesting because I didn't have a sense of who he was when we met him. Like I didn't know, is he going to be some kind of like, is this going to be like a warrior band and he's like the leader of the warrior band? Is this going to be, he is actually a Nordalander? Like I didn't really get a sense of like who he was. And so when we got the reveal that he is the son of the Jarl, I was
Mhm.
like, oh, okay, that's exciting.
Yeah.
I liked that a lot.
Yeah, and then the connections of him growing up in Norderland. Like, you're quickly
Yeah,
kind of putting the
yeah.
pieces together to say, "I bet Norderland isn't actually as bad as we think," particularly
As bad
also
as we think it
because
is.
Snorri doesn't seem very nice and Bjorn
No,
seems wonderful and lovely, so you can only assume that the people that brought him up, which is obviously
right.
the people of Norderland, are maybe not all that we're being told that they
All that bad.
actually are.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
Did
what did you think when we got the reveal about Freya's powers? About that she actually has the power of Hlyn and this whole like prophecy and everything that's attached to it?
Yeah, I thought the magic system was pretty cool. I don't know about you, but I like the way that it's sort of like you're blessed by a god, and so there's these children of gods. And I do really like that her power comes from some like lesser known goddess. I didn't understand, at least initially, like the whole shield maiden and the prophecy and like what that meant. And then obviously, the one thing I'll say, like the one criticism I guess I have of the book is I it was kind of clear to me from the beginning how like that the prophecy was just being interpreted wrong, right?
Mhm.
Like the prophecy is that whoever controls the shield maiden's fate will like unite the lands. And I was like, okay, well, yeah, she's going to control her own fate, obviously. Like, um,
Yeah, we're smart. We figured it out straight away.
yeah. And so like it never actually made sense to me why Snorri thought marrying her would make him the king. And I know that like I can suspend disbelief and like whatever, it's fine. Like he's a bad character. It like served a purpose, but I would have liked it to be a little more
Necessary.
necessary. Yeah, it just
Mhm.
didn't make any logical sense to me why
No,
he
I
would why marrying her would like fulfill the prophecy in his mind.
yeah, yeah. There wasn't that there wasn't really the difficult, challenging decisions. Like the fact that they got married and then his wife does just get super jealous and is like, no, you can't consummate the marriage. Like, if this was a darker, grittier book, he probably would have definitely consummated the marriage, and
Yeah,
they would have had to still navigate around that and be like, yep, that's okay. Like, this is Vikings, that's just what we do. I mean, I kind of like that because it keeps it kind of like she can mainly focus on Bjorn and no other relationship. But I guess if you were looking at it from more of a reality kind of perspective, I guess the
yeah,
chances of that would have been extremely like there's probably no way that he would have taken that kind of risk. And then there was a whole blood pact, which I did enjoy, but I did also find it kind of like the wording of it was very quickly evident that straight away I was
predictable.
like,
Yeah,
well, she just talked about it being of the blood. You can't tell anyone unless they've got your blood, Snorri. And it's like, yeah, well, your son also has your blood. So she can totally just tell him anytime. And he's the one she's actually got a thing for. So she's
yeah.
definitely going to tell him in, another 100 or so pages.
And it was a little like, I guess, like it was kind of frustrating that Freya didn't realize any of those things because like she is a really smart character. She's super smart, and the fact that she doesn't realize like the language in the prophecy and the language in the pact or the bargain,
Yeah.
that like again, like we're picking hairs, but like if there's anything I was gonna say that like was frustrating for me, it was like those two things. Um, I still love the book. Like there's no
Yeah,
like I think it
exactly. This
was
is
full of
just
things
where
I
you
don't
would
care.
say that there's a simplicity
The
to the book,
simplicity is there. Yeah,
that you don't
absolutely.
have to think too hard. Like it's sort of there, it's enjoyable. If you were wanting to make it more complex, it would be to
Yeah,
probably make those particular aspects of it more complex. But in the whole scheme of the book, it perfectly lined up to allow us the great book and the journey that we
The
really
great
enjoy,
stuff that we
and
got.
seeing those
Yeah.
characters figure those things out along the way. Yeah, they were just like little moments that you just thought, oh, that took me about 0.2 of a second to figure out the loophole in that one.
That one's easy. Yeah, exactly.
But I'm also super
What
glad that those characters weren't too intelligent and totally created those loopholes. I was like, fabulous, awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. 'Cause then it was, like, great timing that they got to talk about it
It
and
was
realize it.
definitely interesting, when it just quickly was like, Snorri was like, okay, you're just going to become my second wife. And it was like, okay, we just got her out of one marriage. She literally grabbed Bjorn's axe, flaming axe, threw it at her husband's head to kill him, which was like great because he was a bit of an asshole and we were kind of glad that he went. But then she just like goes, gets herself caught up in another marriage. And you were just like, no, it's like, no, we like, this is too complicated now. Like,
But, like, also super unique. Like, I found that to be that's not something I feel like I've ever encountered. Like, the fact that we start with her married and then she married somebody else, and then, I really I appreciated the uniqueness of that for sure.
yeah, yeah. And I think also when you think about Danielle Jensen's other books, which like, in Bridge Kingdom, there was sort of that forced marriage and then the
Yeah,
relationship developing
yeah.
afterwards. And I guess I almost could have seen the same thing happening in this one where Snorri was like, right, you're gonna marry Bjorn, and they have to like build that relationship married. But instead, Danielle's kind of gone, nope, we're actually doing something different. Snorri's gonna marry her. Yep. Yep. But his wife's going to be super jealous and doesn't actually want him to consummate the marriage. So, and
Yeah,
luckily for Bjorn, it doesn't seem to deter him too much. Like he's just got way too much attraction to Freya that even though she's married to his dad, he's just like, yeah, whatever. Like you're gorgeous and I'm still pursuing you
we're
regardless.
gonna keep flirting and it's fine.
Yeah.
I do think I would have appreciated um POVs of Bjorn throughout the book.
Mhm.
I feel like that would have been a way to like make the book more complex, is to sort of see his perspective and almost like get to see his shift towards her. Like, because it like I felt like it was so obvious that Bjorn was the spy and was part of Norderland that like we didn't necessarily need to have that as like a big reveal. Like
Mhm.
it so we could have just had the tension at like throughout the book with him.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm
Y
just like bringing up all these like things
yeah.
that could have been better, but I think it's
You were like, "We love this book, it's got 5 stars," but then we're like, "Oh, this is how it could have been better." Like
but like so I'm not I
you're
it's
actually right though, like in that I can see that if we got Bjorn's perspective, that actually would have created more. I guess it would have added a lot more kind of stress to the situation because you would have
yeah,
realized how torn he would be. That he'd be like, okay, I have a super attraction to this woman, but she's now married to my dad, who I'm spying on, and the
and I have this plot to
complexity of
kill
that
her and
situation for
like
him. Yeah, like we only get Freya's perspective, which, is nice and shows it. But yeah, you're so right. Bjorn's would have actually added even more. It would have been like, okay, it just got deeper and darker and more complex, and him having to work through that.
yeah, I would have really liked that.
Hmm.
Um what did you think of like the magic system? Like the way that
Uh,
that they have
How
these
they
like
kinda get a
powers.
drop of the god's blood and or they, like,
Yeah.
potentially participate in the creation of their children. Look, I don't kn a apart from watching the show Vikings, like, on was it, like, BBC or whichever one it was that did it? The History Channel, I think it was. I really don't know a ton about Viking mythology. I assumed that kinda how this was is very much particularly because everything seems pretty in line with Viking mythology, I pretty much assumed that this is what it actually is about. So I just kind of took that as that is how they believe people were given blessings and powers from the gods, that sort of thing. So look, I thought it was cool. I say I didn't probably think too much into it as to like whether it could have been done in a cooler way or something like that.
Yeah,
I simply just let it wash over me and just really
yeah,
enjoyed the fact that, Freya has Hlynn's powers, Bjorn has Tyr's powers, and how they kind of come to get them is a little strange, but I think is more in line with sort of Vikings, and their kind
yeah.
of mythology. How about
I
you?
guess I was just the whole time I was just wondering if the gods and goddesses themselves were gonna have, like, conflict that either in the past or the present that sort of wrapped Freya and Bjorn up in it.
Yeah.
I'm still not totally sure if that's the direction the book is gonna go.
Mm.
I found it interesting, that all the gods sort of appeared and were like, "We see you."
Mhm.
Um, and that, like, it does seem that there's some kind of hierarchy between the gods, that, like, some of them are more powerful and important and some are less so. Um
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's
Yeah.
just my
You've got,
only
like
that is
you've
I just
got
don't
the
know.
bigger gods and the lesser gods, and
Yeah,
that determining a lot. And yeah, we didn't really get much about whether there was many conflicts, with the exception of Freya's conception, and that
yeah,
being that, because Hlyn actually gets involved and says, "You've actually been tricked, and you're about to create a daughter of hell. Let me give a drop of blood so that she might actually end up being a good person." So we obviously
yeah,
see that there are some mixed, that the gods don't all see eye to eye. That there might be a general majority that's sort of, rule, and then we kind of know
yeah,
that Loki is a bit of a, he's the trickster and
trickster.
stuff, so we
Yeah,
don't know what he's going to do. But I would actually love to see that. That is something that, if like next book adding more
yeah,
complexity, it would be
same.
really interesting to find out if there was more friction between the gods and different drives, and that they're not just all hoping that Freya and Bjorn are going to end up being the rulers of all, that maybe there are some that are against that, some that are for it, and some that are
Yeah,
wanting to just mess up
especially
things.
because of the way that, when she goes to that ritual to get her, like, tattoo or whatever,
Yeah.
she's sort of, like, getting ripped in two, which I interpreted as, like, 2 gods warring over her.
Mhm.
And I think that, like, I hope that that's more than just, like, her dual nature. I hope that, like, literally, like, there's, like, 2 factions of the gods, and, like, some of them want her to be
Yeah.
good and some evil, and that we start to see some of that playing into it, because I love, like, gods and goddesses, and I just think that would make it really interesting if
Yeah. Well, and when you think about that, that was, if we go on what it is now, that it's Hlyn and Helheim, or Hell, like Hell's a lot more powerful than Hlyn. So that would have been a like
right,
Hell would have won in a moment. So it felt more like it was like Odin and Hell or something. It was
or
more like
something.
good
Yeah,
versus evil. I really hope they kind of go down that path. And that's definitely
same.
going to be Freya's potential journey from here, is exploring her good versus evil side and which way she decides to go with it. Because she's obviously got the two sides of her that she could kind of easily fall either way.
Mhm, mhm.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
did like too that we saw that along the way. We definitely saw her sort of being torn by both sides before we knew what, like, I will say I obviously I figured out pretty early that she probably had 2 different gods or
Yeah.
goddesses, but, like,
Same.
I did not figure out that she was gonna be, like, a daughter of hell. That is not something
Same,
that was
same.
definitely a
I thought
surprise to
maybe it
me.
was Loki. I was thinking like
Yeah,
I
me
was definitely
too.
was a badder one, particularly once we started getting the once she visited her mum's house and she like
Yeah.
found out that she'd sort of been tricked. But my thought had been Loki to Helheim when that line happened, and it was just like, I curse you all to Helheim, and then literally the world just like breaks up and everyone just gets sucked into hell. And it was just like, I was like, "Oh my god. Oh my gosh." And then it
Yeah.
was like, "You're the daughter of hell." And it was like, "Oh my god." Like, that was such a shock.
And I'm so curious, like, what will that power be? Is it just that she gets to say, "I curse you," and they go to hell? Like, is that her power, or does she have more power?
Yeah. And,
It'll be
like,
really curious
before
to
that,
see.
when she was just being, like, influenced by hell, but it hadn't really, we didn't know what they were yet, but we kinda knew it was a bit of a bad side. But, like, they'd be there and they'd be in the background, like, "Fight them, kill them, do this." And
Yeah,
me being the reader
yeah.
that I am, I'm like, "Yes!" I'm like, "Yes, you do that, girl. You go kill them." Like, I'm loving this shadow dark side of you. You do that. And then it's kind of like, and then she's kind of like stops herself and is like, "No, these are bad choices. I need to make the altruistic
I need
choice.
to
I
make
need
a
to like
good choice.
think about my decisions before I just act on impulse." But
And
yeah.
she's ending the book, like, super pissed off, so she might choose to be a villain for a little bit,
No,
which would be
you know what
exciting.
I would love to see? We have not really seen this in a book, and I would love it if Danielle did this. I would love her to be a shadow woman. Like, you
That
know
would
how
be
we
so
have
awesome.
shadow daddies? Like, we have so
Yeah,
many shadow daddies. We love our shadow daddies, but we have never seen a shadow mummy, like shadow
yeah,
woman.
yeah. And he has, like, firepower, so, like, the combo there could be really
Yeah, because it's
interesting.
like
I
when
like
she gets
that.
into that zone, she's got all like the crimson red eyes and smoke and stuff. So I'm like, hey, if she could like control that smoke and full on have like
Yeah.
shadow powers, I would love that.
Mhm. I hope that Bjorn becomes a little bit more accepting of that aspect of her power in future books, because right now he also seems kind of scared and intimidated and worried by it. So I hope that he can like sort of accept that about her and like,
Yes.
you know, find her red-eyed self as sexy as her like regular self.
Just like how in Jennifer Armentrout's book that I just finished reading last night, how there's like a whole spice scene in his shadow form. Like
Yeah.
literally
Yeah.
there's a shadow spice scene. Like I would like to see that, a full embracing of that. Like I kind of all right, this is just me. Just like right now, I adore a villain. Like I love a bad good villain, and I would be kind of open to seeing her really exploring that dark side. But rather than fighting against it, kind of owning it and kind of being like, I
Yeah.
have this power, and rather than fighting it, I'm going to kind of use it, but hopefully, sort of for good. And
Yeah.
but,
Yeah.
like, what's Azrael's line? Like, "You can do a lot of good being bad," or
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, exactly. And and, like, there are some characters who are, like, truly awful that, if she goes evil shadow woman on Snore, I
Yeah.
don't care. Like, I want her
Yeah.
to. So there are
Exactly.
some people who, like, totally deserve it. So it'll be good.
100%. I mean, surely we are gonna see her dip into that dark side, like, have times where
Yeah,
she needs to go to it. Like, yeah, most of the time she can be all Hlyn and she can just go with that and,
and
just be a
shield
nice shield
thing and
maiden, but we wanna see her go dark sometimes, especially for people that
mhm,
deserve it. For people that deserve it, you wanna see her go,
definitely.
"Yeah, yeah, that's what we need," for sure. So what did you think of like I guess the journey they go on? Like Snorri just kind of going, right, you're my, you're gonna help me become king of all the realms. So let's go start, attacking villages and and going around. And well, basically Newt actually he sort of fights them first and attacks them. So then they're just kind of going back to, counter that attack. But yeah, what did you think of all that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was good I feel like the plot was kind of always moving. So just from like a just craft or just like structure of a story perspective, I thought it was really great that they're sort of always on this new little mini quest,
Mhm.
like okay, they've been attacked, they're trying to like solve that, then they go to make the sacrifice. Oh, on the way, they find out they have to go through the mountain. Okay, they're there. Now they got to get home. Now they have to send the mountain. Like it
It
moved things
keeps them
along
moving
really,
really
really
nicely. I
well.
realized reading Demi Winters and then reading this, I realized how much I actually enjoy a story that's on the road. That's like on the road
That's
because then it's like you're
yeah,
adventuring as they go along and then they run
absolutely.
into drama along the way and they have to go off and do some various quests along. But I've just realized how much I
Mhm.
actually enjoy that trope of them just being on the road on a journey. It really adds
Yeah,
so much
it's
to it.
nice. It
Yeah.
it just, like it moves the story, there's always new characters, there's always, like, new, like, things to find out, so I liked that a lot. I liked a lot of the side characters. I was heartbroken when that female warrior, I can't remember her name right now,
Yeah. I
died.
know which one you're talking
Like,
about, but I
yeah,
can't
the
remember
one
it
like,
either.
she was a jarl. She was like a jarl, and she, had, like, a band like, Valkyrie warriors, basically, and I was, like, so into her, and I, like, could not believe that she was killed off. That was, like, a total shock to me.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, it makes sense for the plot to, like, make Freya kinda go bad and scare people with how, like, badassery she is, but I was really sad that she died. Really sad.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know. But things we have to do for the characters. Yeah, no, I really liked how they have, Freya did. develop along the way we sort of on this journey, and I mean, and I guess mainly just the building of the relationship between Bjorn and Freya as we go along. I mean, I probably almost flick parts of it just to get to that. and
Yeah.
and you know, and them having to kind of, I mean, they keep being thrown together, and then them having to band together to fight the Drog, and then, you know, and
I
it's, I mean,
love
and I
the
think
dog.
it's Drug, however you say it, and then, you know, it's pretty evident pretty quickly how their powers kind of work so well together, and they're pretty much just
Mhm.
always a pair. And luckily, Snorri has no issue with his wife being like attached to Bjorn by the hip the whole time, and
Snorri's an idiot. If he cannot see the banter between them, he's an idiot.
I know. He just had like his like glasses on. He was just like, I don't care. I've got my wife. I just want to be king. I don't care what she does. Like, I'm actually surprised I didn't even go that far as to say, look, you can go hook up with Bjorn. That's no problem. Like, I just want you to make me king. Like, that's my only
Yeah,
focus. I've got a wife. I don't need you actually as a second wife. This is just on paper only. Like,
yeah. I just like going back to like what you said, I like was obsessed with the drog scene under the mountain or in the
mm,
mountain or whatever. Like, loved that scene, loved their banter, loved how like close they got for that. Really, really enjoyed them being in that mountain.
yeah, yeah.
And then the scene where they're being attacked or like it's like the party and he like kisses her to hide her true
Yes.
identity. I just was like dying. I was like, that is the best. Love
It
a
was
trope like that.
so good because we'd had such a slow burn till then, and then it's just like,
Yeah,
"Quickly, hide," and then he just, like, smashes himself into her,
yeah, yeah.
passionately kissing her, and you're just like, oh, yeah, you're a
And
very
I
smart
love that
man,
they
Bjorn,
didn't
very
go
smart."
they didn't go like a ton of time before they like talked it out and were like, oh no, we were both into that. Like it was only a couple of chapters. I hate it when they like that happens and then it's like 20 more chapters before they're like, "Oh no, I was actually into that." Um, so I was so happy that it was just like
Wasn't
very
too
quickly
much of a slow burn. I know.
too
I
much
love a
of a
slow
burn for
burn,
that.
but I actually don't like I'm actually quite happy for it to not be too long. I'm quite happy to
Yeah,
get the satisfaction about halfway through. If I'm waiting to the
yeah.
last I've had some books that it's like the last 20 pages. Like it is literally the end of the book, and I'm
Well, this
almost
one was
frustrated at that point.
pretty late for the actual True Spice scenes. I mean,
Yes.
they
That I
like
was
that
getting
it
scared.
was pretty late in the book.
I was worried. I was worried we weren't
I
gonna
was
get it.
too.
I was looking at
I
the
was
amount of
too.
book left and going, we haven't had a spice scene yet. Like, there's
Yeah,
not a lot of book left here. Like, you know, and I'm
yeah,
expecting like 10 pages of spice here, and there's barely 10 pages of book left.
I
But
know.
luckily, she fitted it in. It was just
In a hot
right at
spring.
the end in the hot springs, just to make Allie happy. She made sure it was in a hot spring.
Yeah, hot spring is like that's my new listeners, if you know of
Yeah.
a book that has a good hot spring spice scene, please recommend it to me. That's my new like I've had my King Arthur era, I've had my Viking era, now I'm entering my hot springs era, so please send me your recommendations.
I love it. I love it. Oh, yes, so I actually want to talk about you just brought up a second ago, and it's slightly sideswiping, but you spoke about the Valkyrie and that there were Valkyrie in this, and it made me think about obviously Sarah J. Maas and the
Of
potential
course.
Valkyrie that we might get in the next Akatar book, and definitely Twilight of the Gods if that ends up being the book after that. Are we entering a whole phase of Vikings? I feel like all the authors have come together and they've been like, let's have a Viking era. And they're all like, let's just start writing these books about Vikings and we're just gonna totally get into this.
I don't know if it's just that like it's like it is super popular right now. I don't know why. I don't know if it's just that like it's a new area that's been unexplored. I don't know if you know, maybe there's some big romantasy or like fantasy book out there that was Vikings that's now like kind of trickling down into the romantasy world. I don't know, but it does feel like they've all gotten together and decided that they're just going to do Vikings.
I like to just imagine that all these authors all like have a secret chat and they all just like come together like in a room with robes on and they all sit down and they create a vote over what will be the next romantasy genre that they're going to focus on.
Like, what's the next trope, you know, like, that is we're gonna make go crazy.
Well, even like
Unfortunately, we know that's not true because we've interviewed a lot of authors at this point, and that is not what's happening, but
no,
it
but
is fun
like
to pretend.
yeah, but I like it's but even the way that a lot of them are dropping information on Instagram, like the Easter eggs that are coming out of like Rebecca Yarros and Sarah J. Maas, it is like they've somewhat timed it. Like they're like, okay, you've got that week, I've got this week. It was like, I mean, where we're recording right now, it was like last week Rebecca Yarros was dropping information. This week Sarah J. Maas is dropping information. Like they definitely
Now,
somewhat are timing it.
I would not be surprised if SJM and Rebecca Yaros's publicists were talking. That
Yeah,
would not surprise me. Like, I would not be surprised if they were sort of like coordinating that a little bit.
yeah. Yeah. I feel like
But
we'll be very surprised if you happen to see them drop something on the same day because I think that would definitely be a bit of a faux pas on their behalf.
yeah, and it tells me that we're definitely not getting like either we're getting the ACOTAR book pretty early in 2024, which I don't think is happening, or it's probably going to be like 6 months after the next Empyrean book, which
I
is
don't want to
sad.
wait that long.
I know.
No, I'm just, guys, I'm not recovered. And I still feel like we didn't get an ending to the book that, and here I am, I'm jogging at Sarah J. Maas because it's taken over my life at this point. But I do not feel like we got the ending that we needed in Crescent City 3. Like, I feel like there was, as you've outlined, Ali, in our discussions, there was like 400 pages of this book that never got released. It was like a 1,200-page book. Like Sarah J. Maas had said, it's a 1,200-page book, and we got an 800-page book. And it's like, where's those other 400 pages? Like, where did they go? Like, please tell me you did not delete them because
Well, but
I want to read them.
more than that, it's not just that 400 pages are missing. The entire 1,200-page draft was thrown out. She said she didn't use any of it.
It's
So she
crazy.
wrote 2,000 pages and we got 800,
Yeah,
which is
yeah, and
wild.
I just truly believe that there's a whole nother section to the book, whether it's just Asriel's point of view, Akatar's perspective, and I feel like she has it finished. I feel like it is finished or very close to. And every time she gives us a little Easter egg, I feel like that's giving us another 2 weeks before we get the next Easter egg. So I'm just like, please at least give us a date because if Rebecca Yarros has given us a date of like the 21st of Jan already, then we're looking at a date post that potentially, aren't we? Unless I
Yeah,
mean, I would love it if like Sarah J. Maas would just do a Beyonce and be like,
like a
"Snap!
surprise
Here's my
hit.
new book.
Yeah.
It's out right now." Can you imagine? Can
Or
you
like give us like a
imagine?
week's heads up or something, like, okay, it's gonna be out next week. I just I don't
The
see them
surprise.
doing that.
But it would
Especially
be
I
the
do feel
best.
like the book publishing world has not figured out their logistics for this type of volume. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know that, like, they would be able to pull off that
Pull
level
it
of
off in that
secrecy.
time. I know the
Yeah, I
literal
just don't
logistics. I
see
mean,
it would leak, it would get on shelves, like, people would know about it, and so I think they probably know that, so I
yeah.
just don't
The
know
only
that it'd be
yeah, the
possible.
only way they could do it is release the digital forms, like, immediately. It would take some time for the physical forms to actually get out to the bookstores. That's the challenge
And
really, isn't
they
it?
don't wanna do that, right?
No.
Because then there's
They
gonna
make a lot of money
be
off the hard copies.
50% of their people are gonna read it on ebook and then never buy it, buy the hard
Yeah.
copy. So that's just I don't think that unfortunately, as much as I would love to be wrong about this, by the way. If I'm wrong about this, I'll do anything, any shot. But I don't see it being possible for the book publishing world to do surprise drops like we get with music,
I
unfortunately.
would love to set them the challenge to give it a go though. It's like, guys,
Yeah.
I mean, more than happy if you even if it's just a novella. Like it could maybe not be the whole book. It could just be a novella and you could just be
Yeah.
like, boom, here it is. I would love to see like that would be pretty epic because it's pretty hard to get
Surprise drop,
anything
like,
snuck through
some
at this
bonus
point.
chapters or something. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, very good. Anyway, there's my little sidetrack, Sarah J. Maas. But let's not stay on for too much longer. Did you have any final thoughts about A Fate Inked in Blood? Any thoughts on how it ended and what we might get from here?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it it ended I wasn't like totally shocked, but I still liked the twist, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't like a twist where I was like, "Oh my god, I didn't see that coming." But I still enjoyed the process of getting twisted, right? I enjoyed that King Harold showed up. That she obviously was mad at him, that they had to drug her. Um and I'm really excited because now in book 2, we're going to get the real enemies to lovers, which is my number one trope of all time.
Of course,
So she's
yes.
going to hate him and have to sort of learn to like understand where he was coming
Where he
from. And
came
like we're
from.
going to get to see, I think we're going to see Norderland. We're going to get to see his mom. I'm hoping we learn more about the gods and goddesses. So yeah, what about you? What are your
Yeah.
final thoughts?
Yeah, same. Like, I think if there was like a if we think of like a rom-com, like your classic romance comedy like movie, there's a traditional recipe that is followed, and you know what's going to happen. Boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy wins girl back, and then there's just all the other little, icing fillers that they do along the way to make it interesting and different. And in many ways, this book is similar to that. It's like the romantasy version of that. Boy meets girl, girl has powers, girl's learning her powers. They slowly build their relationship along the time.
Yeah.
They finally end up together. But then we find out that boy has actually, done something and kept a secret from her. And now she's really angry at him. And now they've jumped on a boat and they're taking her to another place where she's going to fall in love with him after a period of time. Like we're following a very traditional romantasy kind of overarching storyline, but it's what I love. This is what I love in romantasy. I know what I'm getting, but I love what I'm getting. This is exactly what I want. It's not overly complicated, but it's giving me everything that I want with the little Viking and gods and everything kind of thrown in. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's fun. It's enjoyable. I love it. And yeah, I saw, let's say, the Daughter of Hell part. I definitely wasn't prepared for that. That was probably the biggest shock I had in
Yeah.
this book.
Agreed.
Um,
Agreed. Yeah.
them kind of taking her. I mean, I could kind of got the sense that everything was going to go all right at the end. We knew we were going to like leave on some sort of cliffhanger. They weren't just going to go live a quiet life farming.
No.
After
No.
finding out they had
They're
all
too
these powers.
powerful. They're
Oh,
too
let's just go live
powerful.
the quiet life.
We're gonna
How
have
do
a
you feel
farm.
about plowing? So I'm definitely glad that, really that King Harold did show up and threw her on a boat and tied her up and off they go to Norderland. And then we find out that his mum is actually alive. I wasn't expecting that. Wasn't
I was
expecting his
not
mum to
expecting
be
that
alive.
either. that was a twist for me too. I did not expect that. I really thought his mom was dead, and I thought his mom was the Spectre.
Yeah,
So,
same. Same. So now we don't really know
really,
who the Spectre is, do we? We thought that was
mm-mm.
his mum. So
Yeah,
now that's like a new
that's a big
little
mystery.
Easter egg that we need to try and figure out. But yeah,
Yeah,
so no, as I said, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I would have
me
been
too.
happy with an additional 200 pages. I hope that our next book is even bigger, darker, more complex. I think you could take this book and make it even more now. I would love to see this just go to the next level. That would be
Yeah, I'm
amazing. But
excited to see where it goes.
yeah, yeah. But it was a really solid start. And I said, probably one of the most enjoyable books I've read this year.
Agreed. I agreed 100%.
Yeah. All right. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us, guys. If you have any thoughts, if you have read this book, if you have any theories or ideas or thoughts on what that next book is going to be, please rate, share your comments. We are on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we are on your Instagram. So we love to hear from you. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Bye.